So, after more than like 3 years of its rather casual announcement of, Assassin's Creed Nexus VR, Ubisoft finally came out a month ago, and in addition to the pack of other ACs that's going to be coming out soon, finally went on and resurfaced this game with an actual in-game footage. We now know in Nexus, you actually play the role of Enzio, the protagonist in Italy, another one in addition in Greece, and the one in Boston named Connor. Take a look if you missed it. Assassin's Creed Nexus VR is a semi-open role game. It's going to be coming out Meta Quest 2, 3 Quest Pro, and that's how it looks.
There is no victory to be had here.
Number 2, guys, quick mention over here, especially since it's a big project. We've got at number 2 a primarily VR game from a few months ago, a totally brand new game by the same developers of The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, touted as a single-player story-driven RPG called Behemoth in the making. Here's a sole trailer with the cinematic developers releasing the words that it's going to be releasing for PCs and the next generation of consoles by the end of the year.
It devours everything. And soon, it will take your mind. I have found no meaning to this struggle.
Coming after almost 2 years of wait, Aces of Thunder, by the way, that's one of the most talked about games as of this month, is now, first of all, this is an aerial dogfighting flight action game, and it's now coming to the PlayStation VR 2 early to mid next year. The word just came through in addition to a new trailer, and if you're wondering about the game we're talking, just know this. It's actually from the famous developers of War Thunder, and it is a spin-off of that game, promising the most realistic in combat compared to even Ace combat games. Check it out. It's a PlayStation VR 2 exclusive.
Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned.
Speaking of wait, after 7 years of that, Arizona Sunshine is now coming back for the PCs and PSVR 2 by the end of the year. This sequel is promised to get us back to the zombie apocalypse of the Christmas of this particular year we're in, and the story picks up exactly where it was left off in the original game. You get a dog companion now with the addition of a huge pool of both melee and ranged weapons to have fun with. Take a look.
Blah, 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 blah. And since I met my new best friend, I guess I get a little overprotective. Okay, very overprotective.
A Hellsweeper's charge. To cull demonic overspill, Hell's burden.
Moving on, we have Hellsweeper VR. The reason it's in the list today is because the game is now coming out in about 2 weeks. In which case you didn't know, this is a roguelike first-person combat simulator, and it's coming from the same developers behind Sirento. It's another really bizarre game, but really awesome too. Hellsweeper 2 is actually sitting through pre-alpha, and there's a demo for it. It's going to be coming to Oculus and PCVR, Quest, PlayStation VR 2, and that's all those to it. Moving on, we have Stranger Things VR. This is a psychological horror game here based upon the TV series, of course, and coming from the same developers of the the game, where you experience the world of Stranger Things from a never-before-seen perspective of a new character, plotting a revenge basically against the hive mind behind this whole thing. This game is going to be coming to Quest 2 and Quest Pro around fall, we hear. Later on, it's going to be coming to other VR headsets as well. Coming up behind that, from the same studio who previously worked on Little Witch Academia VR, we've got over here Attack on Titan VR, Unbreakable, that was announced last summer as a VR adaptation of the manga and apparently releasing in the winter this year for MetaQuest 2 Pro and also the MetaQuest 3. It's a single player and co-op multiplayer hunting action game, kind of in the same style of the Monster Hunter world a little bit. Developers in Kuvo went on and finally announced the development, they did before, earlier in the year, of a very old game. You probably know Bulletstorm, and now VR. They said the game's going to be coming to MetaQuest VR headsets and the PlayStation VR 2, and all due on December 14 this year. Now you probably know this, but just in case, Bulletstorm came through about 12 years ago as one of the most innovative first-person shooters on the platform. The game is now being made in VR with improved textures, additional content, and probably the dopest trailer you're gonna see today. Take a look. Coming from the same studio behind the VR sport game Racket and X, we've got over here something called UNDERDOGS. This is a science fiction, physics-based robot fighting game with roguelike components in VR, which if that doesn't sound exciting to you, I don't know what is. Anyway, UNDERDOG is slated to hit the Quest store early next year, or at its best case scenario, late 2023.
You're in the red! Get up, man! The bubble's critical! Your arm's broken clean off! Ricardo! You're coming in for the kill! Get up and fight!
It's been almost 2 years since its initial release on PCs and PSVR. Arashi Castle of Sin is also having itself a bit of a new addition in the making since last year, going by Final Cut, which is just basically the core game with gameplay refinements, a few upgrades including improved visuals, updated enemy and boss AI, better controls, and more quality of life features. The game's now coming out in about a month. We hear into PSVR 2, MetaQuest 2, 3, and even Steam VR.
わしにひれ伏せ我々の住みかは影
You think you know the whole story of the Ghostbusters. Well, you don't know my story.
Now look guys, Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord is now coming around fall this year, and we just got its story trailer yesterday. The game we know was going to be coming out for MetaQuest and Quest Pro, and now in addition to that, it's going to be coming to the PlayStation VR 2. This new game follows the story of a new group of Ghostbusters who must defeat the Ghost Lord. It also then dates back to the original Ghostbusters movie.
Evil the Ghost Lord. Alcatraz. Tortured souls whose guilt I could drain and drain again. Their pain, the price of progress. My dear assistant Katie understands. Soon everyone will understand. Especially you, Ghostbusters, with your silly parlor tricks. You will see the progress I have made. Know the power I have.
Evil invades all realms.
Probably one of the biggest announcements out of the MetaQuest showcase earlier this year. Number 12, we have Asgard's Wrath 2. It's actually a sequel to a almost 5-year-old action RPG, and honestly one of the heavy hitters of its release year. Here, Asgard's Wrath 2 is promised to have a massive world beyond the scope of any other game on the MetaQuest platform, taking place mostly in Egypt and releasing in the final quarter of 2023 on the Quest headsets. And last but not least, you see, during the MetaQuest's gaming showcase early on in the year, we also came across a brand new VR game set in the World of Darkness universe called Vampire the Masquerade Justice. What is described or labeled as by developers as an adventure RPG single player in which you play the role of a vampire who actually must decide both good and evil. Anyway, you'll see. This game's finally coming out November 2nd this year on PSVR 2 and Quest headsets for the price of $30. Here's a new trailer.
You'd do well to remember that.